The meeting is for employees only. You, being useless, don't belong here. Melissa, the female head of the advertising department, made this remark. Her words resonated strangely well in the conference room, making the air go still and silent. I understand. I knew that staying any longer would only make things worse and disrupt the meeting. Reluctantly, I started to leave. However, right then, a pale-faced Mark raised his voice. He had overheard Melissa's words and looked momentarily shocked, but his happiness at our reunion seemed to outweigh that. Seeing this, Melissa stared at us with her mouth agape before finally speaking. How does this middle-aged man know the CEO? Are you acquainted? Mark frowned upon hearing this. Melissa was about to experience hell. My name is Mason Ames. I'm 40 years old and have a hobby of stargazing. I work at a factory of a German watch company. It's not exactly a household name, but the brand does have a decent reputation and history. Since it's located in abroad, I live alone as an expatriate. When I was younger, I often worked tirelessly at this company, sacrificing sleep, but now I take care of my health. That's because my wife often says, "You're 40 now. You need to take it easy with work." What would happen if you got sick? In my 20s, I sometimes caught colds or had fevers, so she was worried. Understanding that I'm no longer at an age where I can rely solely on my youth, I decided to avoid causing unnecessary worry. Now, I work when I need to and rest when I need to, which has helped me maintain my health and avoid getting sick. Having taken a long-awaited extended vacation, I decided to visit my family in the US. Dad, I heard you're taking a week off. Come back to the States. I found several spots where the stars look beautiful. This was a request from my son, Hayden. Hayden is now independent and works as an office worker. However, he shares my hobby of stargazing and spends his holidays exploring various places. Hayden and my wife live together in the US, not in Germany. A few years ago, when I got the job in Germany, we considered moving abroad as a family, but now I think this was the right decision. Hayden only knows life in the US, and a sudden lifestyle change would have been stressful. Moreover, he didn't want to leave his friends, so I decided to move to Germany alone. It was a bit lonely, but I have no regrets. Mason, even if we are apart, the family is still connected. In this big world, you'll never be alone. So don't be anxious at any time. This is something my grandfather used to tell me when I was a child, and he would look after me when I stayed home alone. A few days later, having taken a week's vacation, I quickly boarded a plane to the US after finishing work. And then I reunite with my family, who came to the airport to meet me. How's your health? Have you been eating properly? The environment and food over there are different, so even if you've been okay so far, you can't let your guard down. My wife spoke with concern, looking me over anxiously. Though I have returned to the US several times over the past few years, her worrying hasn't changed. Come on, I'm over 40 now, so I do take care of my health. But where's Hayden? I replied to her as I looked around. I heard that my son Hayden was also coming to meet me, but I didn't see him. Just then, I saw Hayden coming towards us, holding a crumpled tissue. It seems he had gone to the bathroom. Hayden seemed to guess what the conversation had been about. Looking at me, he spoke with a bemused expression. "Dad, were you getting scolded by Mom again? I could tell from afar that you looked down. She was probably worried that you were overworking yourself again, right?" "Exactly. You got it right." It seems Hayden can see right through me. I couldn't help but smile at his perceptiveness. As I scratched my head, Hayden's eyes shifted to my luggage. My travel bag, packed for a week's stay, was bulging. "So you're staying for about a week, right?" "Yeah, technically I'll be in the US for 5 days, but I took 2 extra days off just in case." "Great. I found a fantastic spot for stargazing. Let's go together. You don't have any work here, right?" "Sounds like a plan. I'm really looking forward to it." I wondered if the telescope at home was still in good condition. Since it's been a while, I need to check it. If it's broken, I'd like to replace it, but neither my wife nor Hayden are the type to handle things carelessly, so I shouldn't worry. As I walked through the airport, excited about the time I would spend with my family, I heard a shrill voice from a distance. "Honestly, you're so slow. Hurry up and follow me with the luggage. You're useless." A woman in her 50s, leading a group of young people, was spouting harsh words, clearly irritated. I didn't know what kind of group they were, but it seemed a shame to end a trip in such an unpleasant atmosphere. So, we're gonna stop by a store on the way. Is that okay, Dad? Huh? What did you say? Sorry, I wasn't listening. Are you okay? You seem tired. Feeling apologetic, I focused on Hayden and the conversation. When I looked away again, the group of women had disappeared. The next few days were spent enjoying quality time with my family. We visited various places and created new memories, and we also relaxed at home. One day, while watching TV at home, I received an unexpected call from the local office. They wanted me to visit the branch office before returning to Germany to observe the company's operations. When I asked for more details, it turned out they originally wanted me to visit the local branch to provide feedback on anything I noticed. Apparently, they initially contacted the headquarters in Germany, but were told I was on vacation, and so they called my personal phone. In short, we want to use your expertise to help the company grow. We need a fresh perspective to ensure everything is running smoothly. Ideally, I'd like to inspect things myself, but as the CEO, I can't move around too freely. I don't want my presence to distract the employees from their work. The person speaking on the phone was Mr. Mark Jones, the CEO. Well, I should probably call him CEO Mark. We've known each other for a long time, so I call him Mark outside of formal settings. After discussing the details, I promised to visit when I had time and ended the call. As I put my phone away, Hayden spoke up. Was that the company? It sounded like something about work. Yeah, they want me to check out the local branch. Are you going now? No, I'll stop by for a few hours before heading back to Germany. I smiled at Hayden, who looked relieved. Even though it was a weekday, Hayden had taken time off to match my vacation. I didn't want to prioritize work over spending time with my family when we had this chance. That's good. I was going to introduce you to a friend today, but he suddenly got called into work. If you had to work too, I'd be bored. Remember, we promised to go for a barbecue later. Right, I remember. Today was originally supposed to be the day Hayden introduced me to his friend, who also shares a passion for stargazing. I was looking forward to meeting him, so it was a bit disappointing. Apparently, this kind of thing has been happening a lot lately. Even when Hayden makes plans for his days off, he often ends up having to accommodate his boss's schedule or getting extra work dumped on him. I felt a little sorry for Hayden's friend, whom I hadn't even met yet. But for now, I needed to focus on spending time with my son, who was right in front of me. All right, let's turn off the TV and start getting ready. Great. Hurry up and get ready. I'm gonna let Mom know too. Hayden, in high spirits, headed towards my wife, and I watched him go while I changed clothes for the outing. Seeing Hayden still show signs of his youthful exuberance, despite being an adult, brought a smile to my face. The 5 days I spent in the US passed by in a flash. Then came the morning of the 6th day. Before heading back to Germany, I visited the local branch office. The office was in a modern 10-story building in the heart of the city. The building, situated in the heart of the city, exuded a sense of grandeur and dignity. The employees working there had a look of confidence and pride in their company. After checking in at the reception, I was given an employee ID, which indicates my position. I spent about an hour casually touring the office. Feeling a bit tired, I decided to take a break on the rooftop when a young male employee, probably in his 20s, approached me. "Excuse me, I found this ID card. Is it yours?" He must have noticed that I had dropped it. I immediately checked my neck and saw that the strap holding my card holder had worn out and snapped. "Oh, thank you. It probably is. You saved me." That employee ID indicated my title as the chairman of the German headquarters, but the young man didn't seem to read it before returning it to me. The young man approached me naturally. I put the ID card he returned to me into my pocket, noticing it. It was the telescope in his hand. Could he be into stargazing as well? Seeing my interest, he began telling about himself. "I love stargazing. I often stay overnight at the office, so I bring my telescope. Since it's my break time, I thought I'd do some maintenance. By the way, I'm Jason Miles." While I was touring the office, it seemed to have become lunchtime without me noticing. That's probably why Jason had come up to the rooftop. Is that so? Stargazing is wonderful. I share the same hobby. My son does too, so you'd probably get along well. We chatted about stars and various related topics. As we talked, I realized he looked familiar. He was the same young man I had seen being scolded by a woman at the airport. Just as I was debating whether to mention this, a new figure appeared. The woman who emerged onto the rooftop was the same one who had berated him at the airport. Jason, there you are. Just because it's break time doesn't mean you can lounge around. Young employees should take the initiative to ask if there's any work to do. Now, stop lazing around and hurry up and carry the documents to the conference room. Her name, as Jason discreetly informed me, was Melissa Johnson. Jason discreetly informed me of her name. She's my boss. Sorry if she made you uncomfortable. Not at all. I'm fine. But are you okay? I'm used to it. With a somewhat resigned expression, he said this and then went back inside to carry out Melissa's orders. Seeing someone my son's age treated this way made me feel I couldn't just stand by. I'll help you. It'll get done faster if we work together. Really? Is that okay? Of course, I feel like stretching my legs a bit anyway. I told Jason, then turned to Melissa. Miss Johnson, you shouldn't treat your subordinates like that. Doesn't upper management say anything about your behavior? Who are you to tell me how to do my job? Upper management is on my side, so they never complain. Melissa glared at me. Are you some new hire from another company? I heard HR was interviewing someone like that recently. Though that wasn't the case, Melissa seemed to have misunderstood. She looked at me, nodding as if she had come to some conclusion. What I didn't realize at the time was that I had a bedhead. Finding out later, I was embarrassed beyond belief. If Jason hadn't pointed it out a few minutes later while carrying the documents, I would have walked around like that the whole time. But right now, Melissa was my concern. She continued to speak as if she had concluded that I was incompetent. I know the upper management, people who run this company. Even someone as useless as you, who got kicked out of your previous job, should understand what happens if you go against me. Her words made me want to challenge her reasoning. Melissa had built a perception of me as a highly incompetent person. I had never dealt with someone who spoke so bluntly, so I wasn't sure how to handle it. There are documents in the PR department that need to be taken to the conference room. Jason will show you where. If you fail, I'll tell HR to fire you. Now, hurry up and go. After giving this order, Melissa left. Jason thanked me once we were alone. Thank you. But because of me, haven't you caught Melissa's attention? Don't worry. I've got a little secret. You'll be fine. With that reassurance, I followed Melissa's orders and helped Jason carry the documents to the conference room. After delivering the documents, Jason distributed them throughout the room. He insisted on doing it himself, not wanting me to take over completely. After Jason finished his task, I was about to leave the room with him when Melissa returned. Looks like you got it done. But you're cutting it close, with the meeting starting soon. Useless young employees and transfer hires. She probably took a smoke break somewhere. I could smell the tobacco on her as she approached. Do you always treat your employees like this? This is a serious issue. Shut up. Useless people need to be guided by competent ones to become properly functional. If you want to make it in this world, it's best to support the capable ones. You should be grateful. Melissa, enjoying her break, had others working in her place. This must be her routine. It seemed like she was just trying to make her life easier. It's unbelievable you don't understand basic societal rules. You must be incredibly dense. I bet you got kicked out of your last job for being useless. You're lucky this company took you in. Melissa sneered at me, waving her hand as if shooing away a stray animal. I'm done with you. Get out of here. Jason, clean up my desk. I made a mess and don't feel like cleaning it myself. It's better for an incompetent person like you to handle these chores. Understood. Without even looking at Jason, Melissa assigned him more work. Jason, looking troubled, thanked me and quickly left the room. I felt a surge of anger towards her selfish behavior. Just then, I spotted a familiar face in the room. A man talking to other employees hadn't noticed me yet. I was about to greet him when Melissa called out to me. How long are you planning to stay here? Can't you understand time? You're just a nuisance, so get out of the conference room. Can I stay a little longer? I didn't actually need her permission. but saying so might avoid complications later. What are you thinking? Don't tell me you want to join the meeting. Melissa raised her voice, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. With that, everyone in the room seemed to notice what was happening. All eyes turned to us. We have enough employees for the meeting. A useless person like you doesn't belong here. However, Melissa didn't hesitate to make this remark. Her words echoed throughout the conference room. Understood. Not wanting to disrupt the meeting further, I reluctantly started to leave. But then, Mr. Jones, who had turned pale, spoke up. That's incredibly rude. He was the person I had intended to greet. Despite hearing Melissa's harsh words, his joy at seeing me again seemed to prevail. Mason Ames, you're here. Mr. Jones approached me with a smile. Though I had requested you to come, I heard you were leaving for Germany today, so I had almost given up. I'm sorry. I should have come earlier, but I thought it would be better to prioritize my time with my family. That's understandable. Work is important, but you also need to cherish the family that supports you. Melissa apparently couldn't believe what she was seeing. Mr. Jones, the CEO, and I were chatting as if we were longtime friends. She stood there with her mouth agape, staring at us in disbelief. Finally, she spoke. How does this middle-aged man know the CEO? Are you acquainted? Mr. Jones frowned at her question. This is Mason Ames, the chairman of our German headquarters. Didn't you know? With this revelation, Melissa was about to face serious consequences. Realizing my true identity, Melissa turned pale and began to sweat. No way. You never mentioned anything about your position. Why didn't you say anything about it? Her disbelief made me feel awkward, so I scratched my head. Despite her behavior, her question was quite reasonable. I was given an employee ID card, but its holder broke, so I kept it in my pocket. That's probably why you misunderstood. I took the ID card out of my pocket. Seeing what was written on it, Melissa let out a strained voice. No way. One reason I didn't say anything was that I didn't want my presence to interfere with the usual workflow. I just wanted to observe unnoticed. But things didn't go as planned. I then reintroduced myself to everyone present. Surprised voices rose from all corners of the room. Is he the one rumored to have turned the company around? I heard he's accomplished a lot at the German headquarters. When he worked in the US, I heard he was very popular. The saying heaven doesn't bestow two gifts certainly doesn't apply to him. Feeling embarrassed, I wanted to leave. Indeed, in my 20s, I had worked hard to save this company. I proposed various ideas and convinced the upper management, who wanted to stick to a high-end market, to sell watches at more reasonable prices. This broadened our customer base and included younger generations, helping the company overcome its crisis. Mr. Jones, after hearing the employee's words, nodded proudly and then addressed Melissa. Ms. Johnson, you were quite rude to the chairman earlier. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize the chairman. If I had known, I wouldn't have spoken that way. I understand that you didn't know. However, that doesn't excuse looking down on people. It's clear you were condescending to him. Hearing Mr. Jones' words, other employees started to mention recent incidents involving Melissa. They talked about her behavior towards Jason and her general attitude at work. Some mentioned that she often dragged subordinates around on her personal errands, even on weekends. Melissa's face turned to one of despair, and she began to tremble. I see. So you drag subordinates around on your errands even on their days off. This is unacceptable behavior. Do you have anything to say? Well, She averted her eyes, unable to come up with a response. After opening and closing her mouth a few times, she fell silent. We will conduct a formal investigation and decide on your punishment. For now, you're dismissed from this meeting. Your presence is disruptive. I understand. As she exited the conference room, Melissa shot me a furious glare. Mr. Jones put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. That was tough. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's okay. I'm all right. I'd love to host you properly, but I know that's not what you want. Let's save that for another time. Thank you. I'll take my leave now. After leaving the conference room, I walked through the hallway. Next, I planned to pick up my belongings from a storage unit in the city and head to the airport. Barring any major incidents, I should be able to depart for Germany smoothly. As I walked down the hall, Thinking about my plans, Melissa called out to me. "So, you made me look bad back there." She glared at me with a furious expression. I hadn't expected her to harbor a grudge instead of reflecting and apologizing. Did she not understand her situation? I had no intention of flaunting my power, but a department head opposing the chairman was not a good idea. "Because of you, I was humiliated. I demand apology and an official statement." She pointed her finger at me, persistently demanding an apology. When I didn't comply, she turned red with anger and stomped her feet. "What are you standing there for? You will all be dead meat if you don't apologize me now." "Excuse me, I don't understand. It's clear to anyone that you were supposed to apologize to me. Why should I?" "What are you talking about?" Melissa looked genuinely confused by my response. As a child, I often fantasized about what it would be like to encounter aliens at the edge of the galaxy. I concluded that we wouldn't be able to communicate due to different customs and languages. I never expected to recall that thought in a situation like this. Dealing with her felt like trying to communicate with an alien. I'm going to be the CEO of this company someday. I have a brilliant mind and a bright future ahead of me. Soon, I'll be the CEO or chairman of the headquarters. You should consider your future and start showing me respect now. Can't you understand that? Even if you say that, neither the people at headquarters nor Mr. Jones seem to be particularly fond of you. I'm from the German headquarters, and I've never heard anything about you." "What? That's impossible. Everyone says I'm smart, talented, and attractive. It's only natural I'd become the CEO. That's probably just flattery." Despite not really meaning it, people must have said those things, and Melissa misunderstood. "Even my parents praise me every day, saying I'm excellent." "Why are you looking at me like that? You're the strange one." Her forehead veins bulging, she yelled, grabbing my collar. "Stop looking at me with those pitiful eyes. I'm not someone to be pitied. Calm down. Raising your voice won't get you what you want. Shut up. It's annoying, so stop talking." She raised her hand, about to strike me. At that moment, the employees from the surrounding rooms noticed what was happening and came out to help. They managed to pull Melissa away from me, and I sighed in relief. However, Melissa showed no sign of remorse and continued to glare at me. If it had just been the incident in the conference room, it might have been manageable, but this was beyond redemption. I thought she might end up being fired from the company. Later, as I headed to the airport, I talked to my family on my smartphone. My wife and Hayden had other engagements, so they couldn't see me off. After a reassuring conversation with my wife, I discussed our next stargazing trip with Hayden. I remembered Jason and brought him up in the conversation. Of course, I kept the chaos at the local branch a secret to avoid worrying them. Hayden was surprised and said, "That must be my friend. He told me he sometimes maintains his telescope during breaks. What's his name?" When I told him Jason's full name, he replied, "I knew it. I thought they would get along well, but I hadn't realized they were already friends. How's he doing?" "He gets down sometimes, and I was worried about him." "He's fine. He's busy with work, but he says things will settle down soon." "That's good to hear." I considered discussing Jason's situation but decided against it. Jason would probably want to share that information himself, and there were likely reasons for his silence. Even as a parent, I felt it wasn't my place to interfere. Besides, if my assumptions about his troubles were correct, they would soon be resolved. It's such a coincidence. Imagine finding out my friend works at the branch he visited. Hayden sounded astonished, unaware of where his friend was employed. Yeah, I was surprised too. If Jason had not been on the rooftop at that time, he wouldn't have faced such a barrage of profanity from his boss, and if I hadn't been there, Melissa's harassment might have continued unchecked. For some reason, I ended up being there, and it felt like fate. Later, I heard that Melissa was indeed fired. After she left the company, she apparently showed no remorse. Unable to acknowledge her mistakes, she reportedly sent hundreds of protest letters and emails to the company she had worked for. It's absurd that I was fired. It must be a conspiracy. I can't accept this. Please conduct a proper investigation. That was the gist of her messages. The company found it bothersome and involved the lawyer to resolve the matter. Although it didn't go to court, her behavior became widely known, making it hard for her to find a job. She ended up becoming a recluse. Her parents and acquaintances, who had spoiled her, regretted their actions, but helping her reform proved challenging. Rumor had it that loud arguments could be heard from her home daily. Meanwhile, I returned to Germany and resumed my daily work. To avoid further admonishment from my worrying wife, I diligently handled my duties on weekdays and rested on weekends. Although I sometimes missed being on the front lines after becoming chairman, the incident that day made me realize the importance of my current role. It was my duty to oversee the company broadly and ensure there were no victims like Jason, preventing people like Melissa from slipping through the cracks. After a day's work, while stargazing during a break, I often thought of my family. Although I occasionally felt lonely, I didn't consider bringing them over. They're probably doing fine in the homeland. Hayden had become independent, and my wife was managing well in my absence. Interfering too much would be disrespectful to them. The starry sky on my days off always brought me comfort. When I gaze at the countless stars, I find solace. It feels as if they are reassuring me that no one in this world is truly alone.